As the owner of the largest company that sells tenanted properties in the UK, this may be a pretty biased video. However, in this video, I'm going to remain as balanced as possible. And I'm going to give you the real insights behind tenanted properties and explain to you whether it's a good or bad investment opportunity. Hey, it's Gary from Let Property, and we help thousands of investors every year buy and sell their investment property through the sale of specialist tenanted properties. I personally own a multiple seven-figure property portfolio, and I'm here today to guide other investors on the path of becoming a successful property investor too. First of all, what do I mean when I say tenanted properties? When we refer to tenanted properties, we typically refer to residential properties where someone or multiple people are living within the home. So it would not be suitable for residential purchases. It would need to be another investor that would buy that property with cash or with a buy-to-let mortgage. The opportunity within the tenanted property market is astounding. In the UK, there are over 4 million tenanted properties. And according to land registry data, over 4.5% of properties sell each year. And that represents 236,000 tenanted properties in the UK that need to transact every single year. And many of those at the moment go through an eviction in order to be sold. If you buy the property tenanted from another landlord, you're saving them from this eviction process, and you're actually causing yourself a lot of benefits because you're buying a property with a tenant that has lived there for a long period of time and provided that track record of paying rent. The reason that you're also in a unique opportunity is that 80 to 90% of all buyers in the property marketplace in the UK are residential homeowners. But the problem is, when you're selling a tenanted property, you can't sell to this big market. You can only sell directly to another investor. This can often mean that you can pick properties up at a much fairer price with a lot less competition, and you can avoid the horrible bidding wars that you'll experience by going onto Rightmove and inquiring on a property with your local estate agent. And if you buy the right tenanted property, it means you're going to get cash flow from day one, from the day of purchase. The worst ever deal I actually bought was a vacant possession property that I thought was going to be a plug-and-play rental. We were going to purchase the property, rent it out the week after, and it ended up being a nightmare. I had a roof to replace, I had a boiler to replace, I had a rewire to do to get the property electrically safe to even rent out, and it ended up costing me over £15,000 just to get that property in a position where it could actually be rented out. But when you buy a property tenanted, all of that compliance is already in place from the landlord selling the property, provided those checks have been done. That means that you genuinely are getting a plug-and-play rental from day one of purchase. There's no dwell time, and there's also no void period for you to actually get the income on that property when you put your cash across. You're not going to have the hefty refurb costs off the bat because the tenant is living there. Now, that's me sold the benefits. What really are the downsides of buying a tenanted property? The first downside is that generally tenanted properties do achieve lower than market rent, because if a long-term tenant has been living in the property, rents will have risen on average upon the time they were put in the property, and more than 85% of landlords don't even bother increasing rents at all. And looking at the last couple of years, just this year, rents have risen by over 10%, meaning that so many tenanted properties are currently on the market with lower than market rents. With this in mind, you just need to look at each property on a deal-by-deal basis, and the way that we usually explain to our clients to deal with this is just take 1 to 2 years of the missing rent that you would achieve and just factor it into the purchase price and pick it up for a better price. So many people get carried away about £100 a month rent not being off. Just take £2,000 off the price and call it a day and increase the rent in the future. The other thing that you need to be so careful with when you're buying tenanted properties is that there's a lot of compliance and checks that need to be in place that you will do at completion of the property. That's why it's so important when you're buying a tenanted property that you work with a broker that understands tenanted property and you work with a lawyer that understands the same. This means that when you purchase that property, you're genuinely going to get cash flow from day one, and there's not going to be any hidden nightmares within that property when you purchase. Many people think it's higher risk to buy a property that already has a tenant in it, and sometimes wonder, why would a landlord sell a property that has a tenant in it? Are they not paying rent? Well, speaking from experience, there's a very small percentage of properties that actually have issues with rent. And again, a good credible broker selling the property like us, would not even sell a property with a tenant that's not paying rent. So you're actually on the opposite end of the foot, where very often you're buying a property with a tenant that has proven that they can pay rent over a long period of time, which is actually better than putting in a brand new tenant that hasn't already got that track record. So what are the worst pitfalls that you can fall into when you're buying a tenanted property? Well, as I said, if you work with a broker and a lawyer that understands the game, understands what they're looking for, and does all the necessary checks to get all of the documentation for you at the point of purchase, you're actually in a better position buying a tenanted property very often than buying one with vacant possession, because all of that compliance is in place at the point of purchase. The only important thing that you need to do when buying a tenanted property is do your due diligence on how long that tenant has been there and making sure that all of that documentation is in place. If you're looking to rent the property out long term, then tenanted property represents an unbelievable opportunity for investors to actually enter the market in a very, very easy way, as compared to the traditional route of buying a vacant property and putting a new tenant in place. And the real advantage you're going to face as an investor is you're not going to have that hefty competition that you're going to experience on the open market through traditional estate agency routes. So I hope this video was useful, and I hope it gave you some insights on buying tenanted properties and how that might look for you in your investment journey. If you're wondering where you can pick up the best investment opportunities and what the best sources of them are, then check out my latest video to see what that's all about.